Start?
I think we are live now.
It's now streaming. Yes, let's start. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining in. Hare Krishna. This is a nice endeavor by the ISKCON Orlando. And every Sunday, we have those nice classes. And I'm going to start with some bhajan. Let's chant Hare Krishna together. Well, as much as we can, right? Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, that was really melodious and a good start, especially a Sunday. We are all tired the week. Hope we are all energetic to start the next week. Want to give a warm welcome to everybody in the cold weather, people on the Facebook, people on Zoom. So we want to thank His Grace Ishana Das Prabhu, who is our founding member of the ISKCON congregation, part of our congregation for a very, very long time. And he does a lot of services to the community across the globe. Prabhu, thank you for choosing a wonderful topic today, the true knowledge, or real knowledge. So please enlighten us and take it from here.
Okay, let's offer our humble obeisance to Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva, Shri Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanachimirandasya Gyanandana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militandena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I'm going to share my screen so we can follow this together. This is the verse Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. This is the chapter 4. Chapter 4. Transcendental knowledge. Text 19. I'm going to read the Sanskrit. Jasya sarve samarambha kama sankalpavarjita yanani dagdha karmanam tamahu panditam buddha. Jasya, one whose, sarve, all sorts of, samarambha, attempts, kama, based on desire for sense gratification, sankalpa, determination, varjita, are devoid of, jnana, of perfect knowledge, agni, by the fire, dagdha, burned, karmanam, whose work, tam, him, who, declare, panditam, learned, buddha, those who know. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Purport. Only a person in full knowledge can understand the activities of a person in Krishna consciousness. Because the person in Krishna consciousness is devoid of all kinds of sense gratificatory propensities, it is to be understood that he has burned up the reaction of his work by perfect knowledge of his constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is actually learned who has attained, again, he is actually learned who has attained to such perfection of knowledge. Development of this knowledge of eternal servitorship to the Lord is compared to fire. Such a fire, once kindled, can burn up all kinds of reactions to work. So here we have a statement that Krishna is explaining that a person in full knowledge acts without the desire for sense gratification. What that means? Well, first of all, this knowledge starts by understanding who we are. We are a spiritual soul, an energy that has three properties. We are eternal, we are full of knowledge and bliss. In our condition at this moment, we don't experience those properties. And why is that? It's because we are identified with matter that we have received based on our own desire to lord it over material nature. So, this knowledge is starting with the point of who we are, that we are eternal, that there has been never a time that we didn't exist, and there will be no time in the future that we're going to stop existing. That explained in the second chapter. So here, Krishna is explaining someone who has that knowledge. Every endeavor that he does is devoid of sense gratification. So, but this knowledge doesn't stop there. There's more. Then the second point is to understand that there is a source of everything, an absolute truth, and that this source of everything is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And the third point is that we have a relationship with that person, which is based on a loving relationship, which is based on love. And when we love someone, what do? We serve. Now here there's a second part on this verse. That the person in full knowledge is said by sages to be a worker from whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. What is that work? Reactions of work means karma. Karma is actions and reactions. And here There's no definition what type of reactions. So, which means any reaction. So reaction in this world could be uh, seen as good and bad. But that's the duality of the material energy. In the material energy, there's duality. In the spiritual energy, there's no duality. So in the material world, we see duality with material eyes. To act in this world without seeing duality is the platform known as Brahmabhuta. Brahmabhuta prasanatmana sochatina kankshati is explained, where we get to the platform of being able to see things not with the material eyes, but with our own self as spiritual beings. In that platform, we don't see duality. But here, the point is that Krishna is talking to the conditional souls, us. We are identified with matter still. We are on the proper path. We are trying to advance. We're trying to realize that we are not the body, we're a spiritual being, and trying to realize this love for Krishna and serve. And it's a gradual process. So in the meantime, we still see reactions in the duality platform, good or bad. But here, Krishna is explaining that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Because if it's good or bad, we still have to come back to enjoy the reactions. And that's not the goal. In perfect knowledge, we want to leave this material energy for good. So when someone has knowledge, will act devoid of desire for sense gratification. And therefore, those activities and the knowledge will burn all karma. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains a nice point. He says here in the last few sentences, he has actually learned who has attained to such perfection of knowledge. The development of this knowledge of eternal servitorship to the Lord is compared to fire. Such fire, once kindled, can burn up all kinds of reactions to work. Knowledge of eternal servitorship. And that's our position. We are eternal servants of Krishna. Now, sometimes in our culture, the idea of being a servant is not well received, because it means that we are being diminished, being placed in a lower position. But that's not what it means in here. There is a difference in position between us and the Supreme. The Supreme is infinite and we are finite. But in the relationship, in that loving relationship, the Supreme does not need or have any desire to diminish anyone. On the contrary, he wants to enjoy this love in its fullest. So therefore, he treats his expansions as part of himself. And he explains that. And that's the beauty of Bhakti Yoga. It's a different notion of servitorship. But it is, because the servant do something to the loved person. And the loved person also does something for us. And that's where Krishna really, really enjoys. And then when we read his activities, when he comes to this world to give us a glimpse of the spiritual world, we see that he's always trying to serve the loved ones. So I want to now go to another verse so we can continue this reading about knowledge. Now we're going to read chapter 13, text 3. Chapter 13, nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. Kshetrayam chapiman vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetrayayor jnanam yattaj jnanam matam mama. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Jai Shri Prabhupada. O son of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. And to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. So here Krishna is specifying, is going to the point that I already said, but here is when Krishna really goes to that point, although he already mentioned in several other chapters before this one. But here is clearly stating, that is my opinion. And when Krishna gives his opinion, that's the absolute truth. I'm going to read this purport. It's a little long, but I want to just go to this part over here. One who does not understand the field of activity and the knower of activity is not in perfect knowledge. One has to understand the position of Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer of nature, and Ishvara, the knower who dominates or controls nature and the individual soul. One should not confuse the three in their different capacities. One should not confuse the painter, the painting, and the easel. This material world, which is the field of activities, is nature. And the enjoyer of nature is the living entity, us. And above them both is the Supreme Controller, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there's a part here. One who understands the two knowers of the field to be one and the same contradicts the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who states here very clearly, I am also the knower of the field of activity. One who misunderstands the rope to be the serpent is not in knowledge. There are different kinds of bodies, and there are different owners of the bodies, because each individual soul has his individual capacity for lording it over material nature. There are different bodies, but the Supreme also is present in them as a controller. So here is the point. There are two souls in each body. One is the living entity, us, and the other is the Supreme Being, the Super Soul. Jiva is the Sanskrit for the individual soul, and Super Soul is Paramatma, or Atma also can be referred to the individual soul. And Paramatma, the Supreme Atma, the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Self. And they are both in the body. Now the Super Soul is in every single body, from an ant to Brahma. All of them, trees, everything has the Super Soul in it, and a particular jiva, individual soul. So Krishna explained that he knows all the field of activities. So, which means he knows all bodies. And he knows also Prakriti, nature, because he created nature. We are the knower of the field of this body, particular body, and we're trying to understand and control nature, which is not possible. Nature is stronger and very complicated and complex. The more we try to manipulate, the more we get entangled. Like the previous verse was saying, without desire for sense gratification, selfless. We have to act for service. I'm going to go now to last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Perfection of Renunciation, chapter 18, text 64. Sarva guhya tamam bhuya shrinu me paramam vacha ishtosi me dridham iti tatto vakshami te hitam. Translation. Because you are my very dear friend, I am speaking to you my supreme instruction, the most confidential knowledge of all. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. So now Krishna is going to give a verse that summarizes all his instructions to Arjuna. And I'm going to read the purport. Is small and very nice. The Lord has given Arjuna knowledge that is confidential, knowledge of Brahman. Brahman here means spirit, the spiritual energy. And still more confidential knowledge of the super soul within everyone's heart. And now he is giving the most confidential part of knowledge, just surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the end of the 9th chapter, he said, Manmana, just always think of me. The same instruction is repeated here to stress the essence of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. This essence is not understood by common person, but by one who is actually very dear to Krishna, a pure devotee of Krishna. This is the most important instructions in all Vedic literature. What Krishna is saying in this connection is the most essential part of knowledge, and it should be carried out not only by Arjuna, but by all living entities. And the verse is this one, famous verse. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mannamaskuru mammevaishasi samtyam te pratijane priyosime. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Homage. I always forget the pronunciation. Homage, right? Unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Purport. The most confident, by Srila Prabhupada, of course. The most confidential part of knowledge is that one should become a pure devotee of Krishna and always think of him and act for him. One should not become an official meditator. Life should be so molded that one will always have the chance to think of Krishna. One should always act in such a way that all his daily activities are in connection with Krishna. He should arrange his life in such a way that throughout the 24 hours he cannot but think of Krishna. And the Lord's promise is that anyone who is in such pure Krishna consciousness will certainly return to the abode of Krishna, where he will be engaged in association of Krishna face to face. This most confidential part of knowledge is spoken to Arjuna because he is the dear friend of Krishna. Everyone who follows the path of Arjuna can become a dear friend of to Krishna, and obtain the same perfection as Arjuna. This word stressed that one should concentrate his mind upon Krishna, the very form with two hands carrying a flute, the bluish boy with a beautiful face and peacock feathers in his hair. There are descriptions of Krishna found in the Brahma Samhita and other literatures. One should fix his mind on his original form of Godhead Krishna. One should not even divert his attention to other form of the Lord. The Lord has multi-forms of Vishnu, Narayana, Ram, Varaha, etc. But a devotee should concentrate his mind on the form that was present before Arjuna. Concentration of the mind on the form of Krishna constitutes the most confidential part of knowledge, and this is disclosed to Arjuna because Arjuna is the most dear friend of Krishna's. So here we see that remember Krishna is the most confidential knowledge, the real knowledge, and act upon this knowledge of those three things. Who am I? Who is the Supreme? And nature, and understand nature so I can act accordingly, so I can be free from the entangles of karma. So that is the most real knowledge, because the material energy is temporary. So all knowledge of this material energy is also temporary. And we don't want the temporary. We want the eternal. We want to be really, really happy eternally and no suffering whatsoever. And that's only in the spiritual platform, in real Krishna consciousness. Now, there's a statement here that we could ask important question. Srila Prabhupada is saying that we should mold our life to always think of Krishna. One should always act in such a way that all his daily activities are in connection with Krishna. One should arrange his life in such a way that throughout the 24 hours, he cannot but think of Krishna. So how that's possible? We have to do our work. We have the family, the thing, we have to take care of our body, etc., etc. So many things to do. The mind. So how can we always connect with Krishna? That is why we receive a important benediction for this age. When we receive another visit from Krishna. About 500 years ago, he came again as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he acted in such a way as a devotee of Krishna, as an example. And he gave a process that makes possible for someone to remember Krishna all the time. And that is the mantra Hare Krishna. Because we can chant Hare Krishna while we're working, while we're driving, while we're doing anything. We can always chant Hare Krishna and always remember Krishna. And that is a, how can I say, unique situation, is a most magnificent situation, incredible situation, because it makes it joyful and easy to do it. And it's so joyful to remember Krishna and learn about his activities. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, there are the first chapter, the questions of the sages when they are meeting, they come with different points to ask the leader of the of the assembly. And one of the points was that they state that this literature, this epic of information called Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Purana is meant to glorify and explain and tell Krishna's activities and his pure devotees' activities. And then one of the verses, they are saying that how can someone not be attached to those narrations, descriptions of Krishna? Because that's the whole point. And then when we study, when we learn about it, then we can remember those things. And also we can remember and apply in our lives the knowledge of Prakriti. For example, we learn that there are three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And then we study them, we learn, and we try to gradually positioning ourselves in the mode of goodness. So our qualities, those qualities can flourish, and then we can not only become more peaceful and happy, but also increase our what is the word? Our depth, our determination to practice spiritual life, bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness. So that's why we really want to go there to the mode of goodness. And then while we're living and doing our activities, we can perceive the modes acting upon us. We can see the modes acting upon things out there. And then that's also remembered as knowledge. And then we can remember, wow, Krishna made all this. Krishna is organizing this in such a way that we can stop trying to lord it over nature and start to recover our natural condition, which is in reestablishing our love and loving relationship with Krishna. So that is real knowledge. And so we can remember all those things while we're doing all activities for Krishna. And then when it's something that in theory is not related to Krishna, let's say we have to focus on a work that we have to do to be able to be part of society. So we receive a salary, we receive funds, and then we organize those funds to be able to maintain our body healthy, good relationships, and a clean place, and etc. So those things also we can arrange to offer to Krishna. Because not only Krishna is in our heart, but also we can place a altar, a worshipable place and in our home where we can offer flowers, water, leaves, and that meditation is part of remembering Krishna and recovering our lost relationship with him. So everything can be organized in such a way that we remember Krishna. And while we are doing all that, we also have to organize in such a way that we have a time that we can do a recommended by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a moment and focus only on this Hare Krishna mantra. Some period of the day, the best time of the day is before the sunrise. And whatever the condition of a person is, even if he cannot do it before the sunrise, but if it make an arrangement during the day to have a moment for that meditation of the mantra Hare Krishna, then that is going to be the most intense moment of realization of the connection with Krishna. And it's the most intense way of connecting to Krishna at our present condition. It's recommended. It's not something that was whimsically invented by some sage, some person. No. This always existed. This mantra is eternal. It's recommended by Lord Brahma. And again, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he also recommended this mantra to chant Hare Krishna. So we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, every day with any condition that we are living. And from a starting point, if someone is starting, and listen to this, maybe you're starting. So you chant as much as possible throughout the day, even if you don't dedicate a section of the day just to chant, because we have to start, right? Everything in this world we learn by starting. We can't learn if you don't do anything, right? So we start chanting, and gradually as we chant, we study and associate with others. They are also chanting. Then we start to realize, we start to perceive in things inside, a connection inside. And that leads us to chant more. And then the ideal, of course, is to get to a point that we dedicated a time, and that time to be before the sunrise, where the engagements of the mind are the most peaceful. That's why, in that time of the day. So the real knowledge, making a conclusion, this real knowledge is to understand our eternal position, who we really are as a spiritual soul. And that we have, and the second point, of course, is to understand that there is a supreme being, the source of everything. Like Krishna says himself, chapter 10, verse 8. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvan pravartati. Aham, I, aham sarvasya, everything. Aham sarvasya prabhavo emanates. So everything emanates from him. Mata sarvan pravartati. So from me, everything comes. Sarvam is also everything. So Krishna is stating that bold statement that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of everything, defined by the Srimad Bhagavatam as the absolute truth. So, and the third point is that we have a relationship with that Supreme Being, a loving relationship, and is eternal, is full of knowledge and bliss. So we want to go back to that, recover and go back to that position. And that's real knowledge. All the other knowledge is just temporary knowledge. That's what Krishna is explaining here. Okay. So I'm going to stop here. Have any questions, comments, please?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for taking your time. If anybody on the Zoom call have a question or a comment, please unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, Ishana. I have a question. This is Humberto. Thank you so much for the knowledge. I would like to have perhaps a little bit clarification or understanding in the first verse. Krishna says that if you are full in knowledge, so I think that the words was chosen very carefully, because one is we are full in knowledge or we have knowledge, and it seems that there is a difference. To have knowledge can be just a mental thing, but it's not something that we practice daily. That to be in knowledge is something that we adopted from a mental and an intellect perspective, but becomes part of our core life. Do you have a comment on that?
If I understood properly, that the knowledge that we acquire here now is different than the knowledge later when we go back to the spiritual world?
Yeah, well, I just, the way that knowledge is defined in the world is just something that you learn, but you can forget. I mean, you can retrieve from your memory, but it's not that it becomes part of your daily activities. It's Krishna expecting us that that knowledge becomes part of our lives.
So that
As a daily practice.
the definition of knowledge is understanding of something. You can look here. Let's see. I can look here on the dictionary. Knowledge. Definition. So definition of knowledge. Noun, fact, information, and skills acquired by a person through experience or education. The theoretical or practical understanding of the subject. Similar, awareness or familiarity gained by experience of a fact or situation. Like, for example, it could be experience or education. So let's say you go and see the fire and you don't know the properties of the fire. When you touch the fire and you burn yourself, then you acquire knowledge by experience, for example. And from knowledge, if someone tells you the fire burns, and then you, oh, okay, so I'm not going to touch the fire because the fire is going to hurt me. So you learn by education. Someone told you. So either way, you acquire an understanding of some subject matter. So the definition is the same. The subject matter is who are we, who is the Supreme, and what is our relationship with him.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, Rama.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Well, thank you for such a nice class. I just wanted to add on to Umberto's question. What I'm hearing you asking and explaining, Umberto, what I hear is that lots of people in this world, scholars, orators, in-person yogis, they can have this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedic literatures, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are practicing a loving relationship with Krishna in service. So I think that it is correct what you're saying, that line of thinking that you're going, that Krishna doesn't just want us to memorize all the verses and just have all the knowledge in our head. He also wants to have our love and to have a relationship with us in practice in our lives. That's what I'm hearing. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. The 3 points, you know, who are we? Who is the Supreme? And our loving relationship with Him. And loving relationship with someone is not obtained by a theoretical knowledge. You know, it has to have service. That's why we were speaking about service.
Mhm.
It has to be this attitude of service. When we have this attitude of service, when we realize that we are servants, then Krishna reveals himself. The Supreme, someone can argue, oh, how can the infinite reveal to the finite? How can the finite understand the infinite? But the infinite, being infinite, he can reveal himself to the finite, because otherwise he wouldn't be infinite. He will have a fault that he cannot do something. Now, in our position as understanding the infinite, we cannot understand the infinite because we are finite. So we can understand and perceive the infinite to the extent of our capabilities. But it doesn't mean that infinite cannot reveal himself. He can. But we understand to a certain point. And of course, that can increase eternally, but never going to reach the infinite because we don't have that capability. But we're going to be full of knowledge. Let's say you can say, let's say an aquarium, this aquarium is full of fish. It doesn't mean that it has infinite number of fish in it, but it's full. This cup is full of water. It doesn't mean that the cup has infinite amount of water, but the cup is full to the capacity of the size of the cup, but it's full. Sometimes there's some misunderstanding about full of knowledge. It means that we have infinite knowledge. That's not what it means. We are full in ourselves, in our capacity. Then we're full. And if we are full, we are fully happy. And that's the idea. But Krishna can reveal himself, but he will do as our loving connection with him increases. And then he reveals himself more and more and more and more. It's a loving attitude, not a code or philosophical understanding and mathematical, physical numbers, or I don't know, you know what I mean? No, we got to have that type of knowledge. We got to have knowledge of, nature and all things. We have to understand so we can be able to maneuver through our life the best way possible. But not because we have that, then we get Krishna. No. No, that's needs of devotion. That's what it means, bhakti. Bhakti means devotion. We got to have devotion. We have to give our heart to Krishna. And that's the main point. But just to say, oh, give your heart to Krishna, you won't have the effect because we don't know Krishna. So how am I going to give my heart? I don't know. How am I going to act to satisfy Krishna, to connect myself to Krishna? I need to learn. So there's this knowledge to learn all of this, and also to convince our intelligence to have the determination to continue practicing Bhakti Yoga. So all those two things, they go hand in hand. But of course, we need, the most important, of course, is the devotion, is the love, of course. But we need the other one. We need the knowledge about those details of the practice of Bhakti Yoga. We need that.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Haribo Japan, Hare Krishna.
Very nice, very nice.
How are
Glad
you?
to see you. Yes, very nice. I'm good. Hope you're doing well too. Yeah, so very nice class on this topic of real knowledge. And my question is that the real knowledge is out there, and someone authorized is ready to present to. Of course, it takes someone to understand or accept. Well, that's all my question is. Like, the difficulty is that the acceptance is the difficulty. That how do we accept this is the real knowledge? How can I believe you are giving me the real knowledge? Why can somebody else give me real knowledge? That's one thing. But most of the time, people want to find out on their own. If it comes to me, I'll accept it. Like, you go through the experience first. If I succeed, I'll take it. If I don't succeed, then I'll say, oh no, I'll drop this off. I'll find something else. So my question was on the basis of the real knowledge is out there and is authorized, but people are not accepting it. So the acceptance is the problem. How do we? And as like you are taking care of wonderful group of devotees, people who are seekers, wonderful seekers. So when it becomes challenging for us that we want to show them right thing, but the acceptance can become an issue sometimes. So I want to see what you want to share something.
Yes, you just mentioned the point. Is authorized.
Okay.
Authority. Who is the authority of this knowledge? Who I can trust? Can I trust this or that? We have to do two things. One, we have to verify. We have to study. Someone is saying A, B, C, D. No, is a true knowledge? I have to check out this A, B, C, D. If I don't check, how am I going to know? So an open mind, someone has to analyze what Krishna is saying on the Bhagavad Gita with an open mind. Let me check it out. Like Srila Prabhupada always said, just try to understand. Try to understand, and then you make a decision. So that's the first point. And the second point, as we think, we study and verify and think, well, this makes sense, we have to apply. In order to apply, we have to give some faith, which is the first point of the stages of the devotional service, Shraddha. We have to put some faith. Faith is there, it's always there, and we have to put some faith. If we don't put some faith to practice, then not going to happen. Not going to happen. So those two things are important. Analyze, check it out, try to understand, ask questions, see if it's going to make sense for you, make a decision. And then when you decide, you have to put some faith on the process and chant Hare Krishna.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Any questions more? Comments? Everybody accepts?
Sorry, I was talking on mute, I guess. So, Prabhu, I have one question. So, as we read through a couple of slokas and their purports, so Krishna is living as a Paramatma and as a soul, which is us as an individual. We are living together in the heart. And a soul in this body, let's say, is going through the trouble. It could be financial trouble, it could be health or family or whatever it is. So what would be the role of Paramatma at that time, and what Paramatma will do to help to come out of the situation?
It always depends on us, actually. Paramatma is always trying to direct us to real knowledge. It's up to us to pray, ask for it, and when it appears, we have to try our best to understand and practice, no matter what difficulties. Difficulties are very tough. It can really bewilder the mind and take someone away from spiritual path. So even if someone cannot practice anything, cannot really study, doesn't have the time, doesn't have the head, but one thing we can always do: remember and cry for Krishna. We can do that. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Krishna, 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 hey. Pahima, Pahima. Help, help. Because we're going to do it anyway. We're going to be crying for something, for someone to help us. But if you cry to the super soul, Krishna, 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 hey, then Krishna can, and he will, because he promised, take us to relief. But you have to keep chanting. That's why one of the great devotees, Kunti, she had prayers in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's another level. Of course, you cannot imitate that. But she's asking, please send calamities one after the other. Because when calamities and difficulties, obstacles come, I can really, really deeply cry for you, Krishna. Of course, we cannot imitate that. We can be bewildered and, get into panic, which is one of the mode of ignorance conditions. And then we lose our memory. But it's just to tell us that calamities is not in all bad if we have the opportunity to remember Krishna. It's a gradual process. Prabhupada always says that. And we try our best. And Krishna will take care of it.
Thank you, Prabhu.
I had one more comment.
Yes.
So right, I just you just made me think, Ishana, because you answered that question so nicely from the devotee who was asking about how do we know with so much knowledge, like how do we discern and figure out what is right, and I mean what is the truthful knowledge, and there's so much out there, and in this whole process we cannot leave out the guru from this process, and whatever somebody is telling us, just like Ishana was saying, we have to test it. Whatever somebody's telling us or what we're reading, we have to test it. What the guru is saying, what the spiritual saintly persons say, and what the scriptures are saying, the guru, sadhu, sastra, we always have to be testing it to make sure that what we're hearing, what we're receiving is in the line of, of guru, sadhu, and sastra.
Do
Always
what I do.
be safe. Yes. And then you'll be then you'll be safe. You'll be okay.
Yeah. Verification, yes, still on the same package of verification. Yeah, we have to verify that if someone is telling me, chant Hare Krishna, and they are not chanting, what is the point? It doesn't make so much sense. So if someone's telling me chant Hare Krishna, and they are chanting Hare Krishna, then I'll pray. Then I think I'm going to the good, correct direction. Yeah. Oh, don't do like this, and they are not doing. Okay, then I'm like, okay, then it's good. Serve, and then we check. Oh, yeah, he's also serving. Okay, so then, we have to verify. That's correct. We have to verify.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Danvat Pranam.
Dandavad pranams.
Prabhu, you said cry for Krishna, and you said Krishna, Krishna, Krishna hai, and I just didn't remember. Can you type it in the chat? What is that, the way to call out, other than the Maha Mantra, because this sounded different. Can you
Yeah,
please?
that's not the Mahamantra. It's one of the songs that the Krishna devotees, the Gopals, they chanted. The cowherd boys, they chanted when they were walking into a cave, and the cave was the mouth of a serpent. And they chanted that song, Krishna, 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 hey. So it's in the thank you, Renee. Hare Krishna. It's in the Krishna book. Do you have Krishna book?
I have Bhagavatam, but I don't have Krishna book, but I can look it up on Vedabase, Prabhu.
Yeah, check on Vedabase. I think it's there, the whole mantra.
Okay,
Krishna,
which
Krishna, Krishna,
chapter?
Krishna, 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 hey, Krishna, 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 hey, Krishna, 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 Pahima.
Okay.
Krishna,
I'll try
Krishna,
to-
Krishna, 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 Rakshama, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Pahima, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Rakshaman. I think it's like that.
Okay.
You have to check it out.
Okay.
Yeah, bro, that's the prayers. That's the
Yeah,
prayers.
right.
This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prayers. That's how he used to
Yeah,
cry to Krishna.
the cry to Krishna. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pahima, Pahima.
Pahima, Pahima, me Rakshama. Protection, protection.
Protection, protection. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. I will look
You're
for it. But if you guys have a reference, like a link, please share it. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, Brahmaji Prabhu, I'll share this with you, okay?
Thank you.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. All right.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time
So I think we can end the class here.
and
So,
opportunity to
yeah.
talk about Krishna.
वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितनां
पावनेभ्यो
वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
Jai Shri Prabhupada. Thank you. Good to see you. Hare Krishna.